Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM. Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. I am coming at you live from H-Town, Houston, Texas, site of Game 5 tonight for the Western Conference Finals. Houston Rockets host the Golden State Warriors. The series is even at 2-2. Obviously, it's an incredibly important game. If Houston wins this game, that means worst case scenario is they force a Game 7 on their home court at the Toyota Center, which is what they played for all season long. You're the Golden State Warriors. You win tonight. You go back to the Oracle for Game 6 with a chance to make amends for Game 4. Obviously, that's on a lot of people's minds. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers officially being on the brink of elimination after losing to the Boston Celtics last night at TD Bank Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, a legitimate question can be asked. Do you even want to see them in the finals after the way you've seen them perform in 3 outings on the road in Boston in this Eastern Conference Finals series? We'll get into all of that as the show progresses, make no mistake about it, but it's important that I veer left or right, whatever way you want to term it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a sports show. And obviously, we will be talking about sports. And when you think about the NFL, the National Football League, and this protest issue, even though it transcends the world of sports, it's still a sports issue because we're talking about the National Football League. Let me be the first to say that this is a subject that makes folks at ESPN very, very nervous. Executives in any line of work get nervous because if something could potentially affect the bottom line, they do get nervous. That's why the NFL and the owners implemented these new rules. There's a lot of reasons for people to be nervous. This is not the day that I'm going to provide comfort. See, we're going to talk about this and we're going to have a real discussion over the next 2 hours. We're going to insert things about the Eastern and the Western Conference Finals, and the lines are certainly open to talk about these things. But Stephen A. Smith and the Stephen A. Smith Show does not run from issues. We're not running from issues. We're not running from this subject. The National Football League made news yesterday by instituting new rules that calls for eradicating kneeling during the national anthem. If you are a player, a coach, or any kind of team personnel, and you come out of your locker room while the national anthem is being played, you will stand. You will not kneel. And if you choose to kneel anyway, if you choose to imitate Colin Kaepernick, you will be fined. Now, if you don't want to be fined, either don't kneel or you do have the choice of staying inside the locker room until the national anthem is played, and then after that, you can come out. But as long as you're out on that field while the national anthem is being played, you will not kneel. There will be no cameras witnessing players or team personnel or league personnel and officials kneeling during the national anthem. And because of that, people have had a lot to say about this. Players have spoken out against it because they are upset because, according to what I'm hearing, the commissioner and at least one of the owners, John Mara for the Giants, lied to DeMaurice of the Players Association, if indeed you believe the Players Association, because they were told, A, no policy changes would take place, and B, they would be consulted and it would be something that was discussed, if not negotiated. And that is not what happened. The owners unilaterally made this call. But the word unilateral is arbitrary because guess what? I think it was Chris Johnson or Charles Johnson, whatever his name is. The younger brother of Woody Johnson, the owner for the New York Jets, came out and he said, players who kneel, I'll pay their fine for them. So clearly all the owners are not on the same page and the word unilateral does not apply. The players are in an uproar. Doug Baldwin is quoted as speaking out against this.
To me, this just further punctuates the tone deafness or the disconnect between the NFL and its players. The NFL just doesn't get it. It's more of a PR move to me than anything. It's not really trying to get to the gist of it. I don't really think they ever did care about the initiatives or the things that the players cared about. It's, again, about their bottom line.
Needless to say, you knew somebody was going to ask the president of the United States about that.
Well,
President
I think that's good.
President Donald Trump was being interviewed on Fox and Friends, and this is what he had to say about the NFL anthem policy, the new policy. Listen to the president.
Well, I think that's good. I don't think people should be staying in locker rooms, but still, I think it's good. You have to stand proudly for the national anthem. Well, you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country. You have to stand proudly for the national anthem. And the NFL owners did the right thing if that's what they've done.
If that is the story, do you feel like you pushed this story forward and you pushed this to a conclusion?
I think the people pushed it forward. This was not me. I brought it out. I think the people pushed it forward. This country is very smart. We have very smart people. And, you know, that's something ideally could have been taken care of when it first started. It would have been a lot easier. But if they did that, they're doing the right thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to state this, and I want to state this emphatically. The NFL is in a world of trouble. It's in a world of trouble. We got to stop playing games. We got to stop playing games and dancing around these issues and start addressing it with the fervor it deserves. And oh, by the way, that's ESPN too. Stop running. Stop hiding. NFL Network, Fox, I don't give a damn who you are, CBS, I don't care who you are. Stop running. Enough's enough. Let's start calling this for what it is. Not just sitting up there and putting on our white hats talking about the way it should be. Let's start talking about the way that it is. Issue number one. Surprise, surprise. NFL don't give a damn about your issues. Meaning the NFL owners. With the exception of Shad Khan for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's from Pakistan. Every other one of them is white. They're white billionaires. They are not getting pulled over by police. There isn't racial inequality and social injustice when it comes to a white billionaire. They do not relate. Period. You know what point number two is about point number one? How can you fold them? If you don't know, you don't know. If you can't relate, you can't relate. If that's not your experience, it's not your experience. And if your priority is the bottom line, surprise, surprise. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting text messages with people talking to me about the preamble of the Constitution. And folks bringing up the Constitution and just talking about things along those lines. Ladies and gentlemen, those owners don't care about that. It's a private industry. It is what it is. Everybody wants to bring up free speech and First Amendment and how free speech is associated with establishing justice and ensuring domestic tranquility as laid out in the preamble of the Constitution. Do you know a billionaire owner in the world of sports that cares about that? They care about their bottom line. I had sources inform me that when Jerry Jones spoke to his team, when this whole anthem controversy was going down last season, he called everybody in there and he said, ladies and gentlemen, this is a business meeting. At which time he highlighted the bottom line. And how the bottom line was being compromised. And how dare you as a player think for 1 second that you're going to compromise our bottom line while making sure yours is straight. If you compromise our bottom line, we're going to compromise yours. That's what Jerry Jones told them. And ladies and gentlemen, that's essentially what the owners are saying to these players right now. Is there a better solution? Of course there's a better solution. Can they entertain it? Of course they can't. You know why they can't entertain a better solution than the one they have now presented to us? Ladies and gentlemen, it's because the National Football League engaged in paid patriotism without having a hard and fast policy that dated back to years ago that called and mandated for you to stand for the national anthem. Caught beneath all of this rhetoric, all of this noise, all of this stuff is the fact that Colin Kaepernick never violated bylaws of the National Football League. So the National Football League dropped the ball by engaging in paid patriotism, being paid by the Department of Defense millions upon millions of dollars to advertise and market the United States military, to assist in recruiting, to elevate its profile, to make it more attractive to the American citizen, to provoke patriotism. And by doing that and getting paid for it, how do you then turn around and implement a policy calling for it when you didn't have the policy on the books in the first place? The MLB, NBA, both also receiving money from the Department of Defense, to my knowledge, had hard and fast policies in place that called for you to stand for the national anthem. The NFL strongly suggested you should, but didn't mandate it. So they dropped the ball. So you can't be flaming hypocrites and then turn around and mandate something now that this controversy has swirled when you should have done it years ago and you did it. So of course the NFL is wrong. Of course the NFL doesn't look good in all of this. Of course they can't turn around and do what actually is happening in college football with programs like Notre Dame and others. So says Terrence Moore in his column on CNN today, who's a longtime columnist for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, when he talked about Notre Dame and other institutions that stayed in their locker room until the national anthem was played, and then they would come out. That's what the NFL should have done from day one. Either that or have a hard and fast policy mandating that you stand for the national anthem, but they didn't do it. So we know why they're compromised, and we know why they're trying to figure out ways to alleviate these concerns, and we understand why they're sort of stuck in the mud. Because they compromised themselves for the almighty dollar. Surprise, surprise. But having said all of that, what in the hell makes y'all think that the players are completely right about this? They are not. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a proud black man. I love my people. I don't speak for everybody. Hell, I don't know if I speak for most. I just know that when I speak, I'm heard. And I say all of that to say to you is that as a black man who has experienced racial inequality and oppression and racism, who is all too familiar with brutality on the part of some police officers, while Colin Kaepernick had every right to protest, and the issues that he was protesting were definitely profound and real, I'm here to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. As it pertains to the NFL is wrong in how they're choosing to handle it, but they are not wrong in wanting to handle it. This is not the NFL's problem. I understand that's not popular to say. Damn it, I'm saying it. It's not the NFL's problem. Why? Because the NFL wasn't the target of Colin Kaepernick's ire. Or Eric Reed, for that matter, or Chris Long, or Malcolm Jenkins, or anybody else. They were not targeting the NFL. They were talking about using the NFL platform and the platform they have as NFL players to bring attention to a bigger problem that ails our society. The NFL is perfectly within its right as a private enterprise, a private entity, who is not the target of that ire to say, hold up, y'all, you are affecting our bottom line. What's up with this? And oh, by the way, you're doing so affecting our bottom line, but you don't want your bottom line compromised. They are not wrong for taking that position. Enough's enough. Enough's enough. The president was wrong to hijack the issue and turn it into something that it wasn't, about patriotism. But we understand the agenda behind it. He was out to get NFL owners. And his constituency bought it hook, line, and sinker. Okay, fine. But here's the bottom line. He pulled it off. He pulled it off. He successfully went about the business of hijacking the issue. And because he hijacked the issue, it has now served as a thorn in the side of the National Football League's bottom line. And what the players are sitting here doing now is trying to turn problems that are very real, that absolutely ail our society, that we could certainly use the assistance of the National Football League and the billionaire owners who have purview over that league. While we can certainly use their assistance, you now have players turning their ire in the direction of owners as if they're the problem. But you still got your hand out for their check. You still want to get paid. That's not the real world, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't work that way. You can't do that and expect not to have ramifications and repercussions. If A.Smith indeed was lied to by Roger Goodell and John Mara, he has every right to be furious. If the players want to sit there and say, we weren't consulted, this is something we should have been consulted by, they have every right to be upset. But their ire, as it pertains to any sort of confrontation with the owners, doesn't make them right. They're not more right than the owners in this particular issue because the owners were never the target. And if the owners were never the target and they were not the ones you were protesting against, why should they stand idly by and allow you to affect their bottom line without your bottom line being affected? Everybody want to talk. Nobody wants to give me an answer to that question. If the players were protesting against the owners, there's nothing to talk about. They were not. So if they were not protesting the owners, why do you have a problem with the owners saying, wait a minute, then why should our bottom line be affected? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if the players feel so adamantly about it and they're so dogged in their commitment against the owners, why stop at taking a knee? Why don't you take a Sunday off? Why don't you refuse to play? You want to talk about real protest? Real impact? Didn't you show up on Sunday to play? At any moment in time, did you hear any of these players say, we don't give a damn about the check? This issue is so important to us. Damn the check. Nobody did that. Nobody's thinking about doing it. Nobody would dare do it. So let's stop playing games. I am live in Houston, Texas. Very, very interested in talking about these Western Conference Finals. But as a black man, I am not going to sit up here and ignore this issue and run from it. Nor am I going to just jump on the saddle and come to the defense of a group of players I love dearly and have profound respect for. And I appreciate to the nth degree for their conscientious behavior, what they mean to our society, and what they're trying to address. But you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan of action. And it has to be a purpose. And the purpose can't be that vague. And more importantly than anything else, you got to be cognizant of the fact that we went from talking about social injustice, racial inequality, brutality on the part of some police officers to the NFL against the players. Come on, y'all. That ain't what this is about. Roger Goodell and the NFL need to get their act together and stop being a bunch of hypocrites. You can't engage in paid patriotism and then come up with this kind of stuff. Can't do it. But in the same breath, let's also understand the NFL is not who the players have a problem with. At least as it pertains to the protest. Now you might have an issue if you're Colin Kaepernick or Eric Reed because you can't find a job. And clearly, collusion or no collusion, there's a concerted effort to keep you out of the league because of the damage you did to the league. We get that. But the real problem is what's going on in society. It's not about what's going on in the NFL. And if we're going to move forward with this discussion, can we simply grow up and stop acting all emotional all the damn time and recognize the fact that we are talking big business? And if you really want to talk about sacrifice, then compromise your check the way Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed did. Then come talk to us. Otherwise, fall back. The NFL was not the problem. Society was, is, and probably always will be. The NFL was supposed to be a conduit towards a path that alleviates our concerns from such things, if only for 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon. Let's remember that and act accordingly. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Washing my nose, oh yeah.
I'm a shower curtain, and I do one thing, keep water from leaking everywhere. So you see why I feel useless compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could Geico save you money, but they've been around for over 75 years. And they give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or on the Geico app. And they've got a 97% customer satisfaction rating. They do all this while I have to listen to this chucklehead. Oh, good, he stopped.
Washing my toes.
Oh, great, an encore.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, I did not want to veer off the topic of these Western Conference, these conference finals games, both the East and the West, because LeBron James lost last night. I really, really didn't. But the thing that's driving me absolutely nuts is how people are aghast and shocked. You know, that the owners would be trying to do something to address this issue. They care about the bottom line. And they're simply saying, you weren't protesting us, so why should we be suffering? I'm not saying I agree with that position. I'm saying that if you're a white billionaire, I can understand how you think like that. And if this was something that was such a profound issue with so many of these folks, how come Colin Kaepernick was the only one kneeling in the beginning? How come that happened in 2016? Racial oppression and inequality and brutality on the part of some police officers just started in 2016? Where the hell were folks? These are the kind of questions an NFL owner who's cutting the checks that you're cashing has a right to ask. It's about revenue. I was on Joe Madison's show this morning. Urban View, Channel 126, Sirius XM. Revenue. Ignorant folks, man, players need protest. You know, just don't play. Whatever. Good luck with that. You know they not. Just stop. And they can sit up there and talk all they want to talk. I promise you, let that revenue loss that may be happening on the part of the owners trickle down to the players, and watch how positions get modified. See, nobody wants to say that. So I did it for you, damn it. I did it for you. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Before I get to the phones, let me go to this conference finals. I'm here in H-Town in Houston, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot thank the Houston Rockets enough. I thought they were going to lose Game 4. I thought I'd be standing here today. Rockets down 3-1 on the brink of elimination. I predicted they'd win Game 5, but that ultimately Golden State would be up 3-1 and close them out in Game 6. Obviously, that looks like a very daunting situation right now. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And since I picked Golden State at 6, I'm going to stick with that pick until I'm wrong. But I got to tell you something. I'm going to be happy if I am. I don't mind a 7-game series ever. Especially if the games are like Game 4 was. That was a treat. That was something to behold. To be a part of that environment was something special to watch. And I got to tell you something right now. CP3, ladies and gentlemen, the star point guard showed up. Those are some big-time 27 points. Big shots, big-time decisions. The cerebral point guard that he was. Can't say enough about what I saw Chris Paul do. Can't say enough. I was so proud of him. James Harden. I want to hear this stuff about James Harden choking. Let me tell you something right now. James Harden's got 41, 27, 20, and 30 in the first 4 games of this series. He's averaging 30 on 45% shooting. Stop with the choking. The only thing I'm ticked off about with James Harden is the fact that he's got to wait until that damn Players Association ceremony at the end of the season to receive his league MVP trophy. That's the only thing I'm ticked off about. He should be hoisting it tonight in H-Town in a packed house inside the Toyota Center. He should be hosting that league MVP award. He was sensational all regular season. He deserves it. And rather than sit in front of his contemporaries at inside some damn banquet room in a hotel in New York or LA or wherever the hell it's going to be, it should be right at the Staples Center tonight. League MVP raised above his head while a crowd gives him a standing ovation for the spectacular performance he put on throughout this season. Who the hell came up with this idea anyway? The Players Association? Hey, come on! Talk about a killjoy. You gotta be kidding me. If I was James Harden, if it wasn't so politically incorrect, I'd be on vacation somewhere by then. Gotta show up in New York to get a trophy when 19,000 plus people are screaming in adulation, in unison, for the greatness that you've displayed. 41 home games. All those games on the road. Playoff performance. This guy has been spectacular. And instead of celebrating in front of his hometown fans, he got to celebrate on TNT in front of Michelle Roberts and CP3. Come on, y'all. No disrespect, because I love Michelle Roberts, Executive Director of the Players Association. But come on. Tonight's game is big time, though. I think a legitimate argument can be made. Whoever loses it loses the series. But I can't wait, y'all. I cannot wait. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Dominic in D.C., you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Stephen A., my brother, how you doing today?
I'm all right. Go ahead, man.
All right. Now, I respect that, your position on having to respect the views of the NFL and the owners and everything. But the reason why I'm indifferent is because I'm going to tell you a story about Paul Richardson. I don't know if you know who that is. He plays for the Redskins now.
Yep.
He was in Virginia not too long ago. He was just signed by the Redskins, got his new deal. He was driving around. He has a pretty expensive car. He was pulled over by the police, and the police asked him, "What gang are you in? How do you sell drugs?" And it's like, okay, if you want to talk about protecting your product, you have 90% or so black players in your league that ultimately affects your product too. If all of your players are getting pulled over, or majority of your players are getting pulled over, and just saying that they are not subject to being racially discriminated.
Stop right there. You're being slick, Dominique. You're being slick. Are you still on the air right now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Listen to me, what I'm saying. What does that have to do with the 32 owners? They didn't pull him over. And more importantly, the players weren't protesting the owners. See, what I'm trying to get you to understand, and really, we know what you're pointing to is a very real issue within our community in this society. Law enforcement, brutality, being profiled, unfairly treated, the whole Sterling Brown issue. Don't think I forgot about that with the Milwaukee Bucks player that was tased over a damn parking violation. I got it. You got it. What if the NBA players were protesting the NBA because of that? How would you feel?
I feel like the NBA players, they have a voice still.
Stop it. No. That is not what I asked you. See where our problem lies? That is not what I asked you. What I asked you was, what if the NBA players protested the NBA because of what the police did to Sterling Brown? Would that make sense to you?
No.
Thank you. Because that's what's going on here. You got Colin Kaepernick taking a knee to speak out against that very element that Sterling Brown experienced. But he has turned that into a problem for the NFL. And I don't mean Colin Kaepernick directly. I mean his actions and how it's galvanized dudes around the NFL who obviously feel the need to speak out. And we all applaud them for doing it because we're doing it too. It's still not the NFL's problem. They didn't do anything here. That's not your target. If that's the equivalent, Dominic, of you going through what Sterling Brown went through, right? Or what you just described Paul Richardson going through, right? But then you want to go and protest your doctor. Now, how does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense. And I want to now counter that point.
Go ahead, real quick. Hurry up.
All right. Now, with the NBA players and the NBA players, even if they began to protest, just like with the Donald Sterling situation, they were able to say what they needed to say and react how they wanted to react, peacefully, but they weren't shunned. They weren't, disciplined. They weren't come down. The NBA didn't come down hard on them. They allowed them to express their feelings and express their disappointment on the stage. And it's not, and I understand how you're saying how
it didn't compromise. Dominique, I got to interrupt you because I got other callers. It didn't interrupt their bottom line. And one of the reasons it didn't interrupt their bottom line is because the owners and the league are aligned with the players. And because of that, the players have more of a voice. And we appreciate that. The NFL owners and the NFL players have never been aligned. And still, the owners were not the ones being protested against. So why shouldn't they have a problem with it? Think about that. And let's talk about it another day. More of the Western Conference Finals. More of the protests, the president, and the National Football League. Up next, you're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Delta strives to take the stress out of travel so you can focus on what comes next. And Delta Comfort Plus can help. With Sky Priority boarding, extra legroom, and a wide selection of unlimited complimentary snacks, you can arrive refreshed, ready to take on the world.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Little news came down the pike just a few minutes ago. Jack Johnson. Remember that name? He was the first black man to become world heavyweight champion. Was posthumously pardoned today by President Donald Trump for a 1913 conviction for violating the Mann Act. That's more than 104 years ago, by the way, ladies. It's 105 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. Remember what the Mann Act is. The Mann Act's purpose was to stop human sex trafficking, but the broad language allowed for it to be used to prosecute men for premarital, extramarital, and interracial relationships, even if consensual. You got to remember that Jack Johnson served 10 months in prison for what many viewed as a racially motivated injustice and described his decision as an effort to correct a wrong in history, according to the president, because Jack Johnson essentially had a white mistress. And according to federal laws at the time, that was a violation. It was consensual. She happened to be white. He obviously happened to be black. And Jack Johnson was thrown in jail for 10 months because of it. Trump quotes, "It's my honor to do it. It's about time." He was joined by boxer Lennox Lewis and actor Sylvester Stallone, who had drawn awareness to Johnson's cause. Listen to this quote from Trump. He, as in Jack Johnson, represented something that was both very beautiful and very terrible at the same time. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? What the hell does that mean? The quote from the president. He represented something that was both very beautiful and very terrible at the same time. What the hell does that mean? Oh my God, the things that come out of this man's mouth sometimes. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. Western Conference Finals, James Harden, CP3 and the crew hosting the Golden State Warriors. Kevin Durant's got to step up tonight. Pressure's on him just as much as it is on Steph Curry. I'm telling you that much. Lots to talk about in regards to that. Plus LeBron James on the brink of elimination before an NBA Finals, which would be his 8th consecutive trip to the Finals, by the way. Lots to talk about in hour number 2. Plus the great civil rights activist Harry Edwards will be on with us as well. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show, hour number 2 up next.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast. I'm Stephen A.
Before I get back to the phones at 888-SAY-ESPN, a couple of things that I wanted to point to. A, LeBron James lost another game last night. They're on the brink of elimination. They're down 3-2. The backcourt for the Cleveland Cavaliers was god-awful. J.R. Smith, 26 minutes, just 2 points. Abysmal. Him combined with George Hill, just 9 points. Even as horrific as Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier shot the basketball last night, they still outscored Cleveland's starting backcourt 25-9. I mean, LeBron looks like a one-man army. It's just embarrassing. However, there was plenty of times LeBron James is turning the ball over. LeBron James ain't hustling back on defense. And ultimately, he started looking as if he was gassed. We got to give him that excuse when you've logged over 44,700 minutes in your regular season career, and that's exceeded 9,700 minutes in your postseason career, not to mention Olympic competition. We understand. But can't ignore the fact that you weren't hustling back on defense. Can't ignore the fact that you were turning the ball over. Can't ignore the fact that you were just throwing up ill-advised shots last night. That was not a good night for LeBron James. He'll make up for it, but it wasn't a good night. Let's just call it what it is. And even though I had Cleveland winning this series in 6, I'm happy to be wrong. I didn't expect their backcourt would be this awful. I didn't expect their supporting cast wouldn't show up. And I actually like Boston. Young, fresh legs, enthused. They're not scared. They're fearless. And I actually think they would give Golden State or Houston a better series than Cleveland would. I'm sick and tired of seeing Cleveland. I ain't gonna lie to you. I actually want them to lose. I'm just tired of seeing them. Let LeBron go home before finals now. You don't have the team. And by the way, I'm not giving him a pass. He had everything to do with Kyrie Irving leaving. He wasn't the one that made the call. He didn't ask Dan Gilbert to make the call. Matter of fact, according to what I'm told, he told Dan Gilbert, don't trade him. He's got 2 years left on his contract. You don't have to move him. So Dan Gilbert was a fool to trade Kyrie. But LeBron could have ingratiated himself a little bit better. He could have nurtured and cultivated that relationship better. And therefore you wouldn't be gassed, because when you step off the floor, you'd have somebody that could put it in the hole without you on the floor. But you didn't appreciate Kyrie as much as you should have. So now look at where you are. LeBron has everything to do with Kyrie being gone. He has everything to do with his situation. So I'm not giving him a pass on that. I'm just not doing it. That's point number one. Point number two, this whole situation involving this player for the Milwaukee Bucks. His name is Sterling Brown. For those of you who didn't see the video, you ain't gonna like it. I can tell you that much. Wasn't good. No way around it. Was not good at all. For a parking violation, a cop certainly was antagonizing him, got in his face. Other officers came around. Eventually, because of a parking violation, this dude was tasered. Milwaukee police on Wednesday released body camera video of the arrest and tasing of NBA player Sterling Brown as the department's chief apologized for the incident. Members of the force were disciplined, according to Chief Alfonso Morales, what he said at a news conference, but he never specified how many people were affected. He said, quote, the department conducted an investigation into the incident, which revealed members acted inappropriately, and those members were recently disciplined, Morales said without taking questions. I am sorry this incident escalated to this level. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. I want names. I want to know who the officer was. I want their name. I want their rank. And I want to know what specifically the punishment was. Period. We have a right to know. We do not have a right to condemn all police officers. We do not have a right to sit up there and assume that just because you're wearing a blue uniform that you're corrupt. We do not have a right to be disobedient. We do not have a right to be lawless. We do not have a right to be belligerent with law enforcement officials. We do not have that right. But when they act up and when they transgress, we do have a right to use the system that we work under to exact retribution. I want names. I want to know who the officers were. How many were they? I want their first name. I want their last name. I want their rank. I want to know specifically what the discipline is. Because you can't ask the community to have an elevated level of faith in you when you're spitting in our face and telling us it's raining. It's not good enough to tell us that they have been disciplined without revealing who they are and what the discipline was. Period. While I am a black man who is keenly aware of the fact that racism exists, I don't walk around believing every white person is a racist. I don't walk around believing every police officer engages in brutality and going rogue. I get in trouble, I'm dialing 911. Let me be clear. But when somebody is this wrong and you have them on video, what the hell do you think you're doing hiding their identity and their punishment? Who the hell do you think you are? Chief Alfonso Morales. We want names. First name, last name, rank, serial number if there is one, and damn it, what is the penalty? What is it? They could be on vacation in the islands for all we know. Paid vacation. They could be behind a desk chilling watching in General Hospital like I am. Getting paid. We don't know. I want first name, last name, serial number if there is one. I want position, title. I want to know what specifically the discipline was and is. And I want it immediately. Being a police officer is a really, really tough job. Most police officers are God-fearing individuals, family men and women who live up to their oath to serve and protect their communities. Vast majority of them do what they're supposed to do. I've been, just like I'm a black man who's been subjected to profiling, unfair treatment by police officers. One drew their gun out on me in Atlanta just because I double parked. There's also been plenty of police officers who have been beyond decent and have done their jobs well. And oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, some of them were black and Latino. Every police officer out there ain't white. And every police officer associated with rogue behavior hasn't been white either. We're fair on this show, the Stephen A. Smith Show. We always have, and we'll always continue to be. But in this case, I want names. I want to know who they are, and I want to know specifically what their punishment was. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Carlton in Tampa. You're live with Stephen A. Good afternoon, buddy. Glad you called in today.
If there is such a thing as reincarnation, I want to come back to LeBron James because, when I screw up, everybody can blame everybody else on my team and give me a complete pass. And when my team wins, if my teammates really perform well, they get none of the credit and I get 100% of the credit. So let me give you some stats, Stephen A. Okay. In the 3 Celtics wins in this series, the Boston Celtics have a total of 22 turnovers. In those 3 games, LeBron James alone has 19 turnovers. And in every single one of those 3 games, he had almost as many, if not more, turnovers than the entire Celtics team. Last night, LeBron James misses a shot and is chirping at the ref while Aaron Baines is running the floor getting a completely uncontested layup.
Well, what about the one where Marcus Smart hit a 3 because he did the same thing?
A wide open 3 because LeBron James is lollygagging it up the floor. As well as LeBron James is turning the ball over left and right in that first quarter. They're down by 13 after the first quarter because LeBron didn't show up on half the court, which is exactly what I said. If he doesn't show up on defense, they ain't going to win the game because they haven't in any of the other games. Do you know that LeBron James supporting cast last night had a higher shooting percentage than the entire Celtics team? So all this nonsense about, these guys can't hit the broadside of the line. Let me reiterate that.
That starting backcourt was not impressive. That starting backcourt was not impressive,
but the Celtics were worse, and yet they got blown out. The Cavaliers got blown out. If the Celtics could have hit their shots last night, they would have won by 40, for crying out loud. And LeBron James, with 98% of the people, gets a pass today. It's his supporting cast. Poor LeBron. He stunk out the joint last night, and yet nobody can bring themselves to criticize him. It's absolutely hysterical.
Jaylen Brown, 4 of 15 shooting from the field. Terry Rozier, 3 of 15 shooting from the field. Combined 7 for 30. The starting backcourt for the Boston Celtics. You have a point, Carlton. I can't deny it.
Yeah. Anyway, as far as the the NFL situation goes, I want to say once again that this all started because we got these millennials who feel entitled to bring their social justice issues to wherever they feel like they can bring them and just wreak havoc. Colin Kaepernick, no matter whether you agree with his position or not, and I tend to believe it's more of a police abusing all poor demographics, including white people, poor white people, and with a minority. We're talking 2% bad cops. But if it was framed that way, you'd get a lot more buy-in from the American public, as opposed to it's always a racial issue. But anyway, Colin Kaepernick decides to bring his pet issue to the NFL and turn home field advantage into a home field disadvantage, gets all his hometown fans booing him. By the way, he went 0-5 at home that season that he was protesting. 0-5, Stephen A. at home. All right, and so he decides to do that, as well as alienate every other constituency on the face of the globe with his pig socks and his Castro T-shirt and his Kunta Kinte T-shirt, and slamming Steve Bisciotti and slamming Ray Lewis, who's trying to help him out. And now the NFL is just supposed to take it. The NFL screwed up by saying, if you do not stand, we're gonna sit your behind. That's what the 49ers should have done. They should have said, you can leave if you won't follow our rules. And if Max is right, and it turns out that actually standing for the anthem is a form of political, expression, well, then they would have lost that case and then come to the solution we're at today, where you just stay in the locker room. The
only thing I disagree with you, Carlton, I got to get ready to go, but the only reason I disagree with you, Carlton, is on this. You're not holding the NFL as accountable as you could from not having a rule in place to begin with. You got to remember, regardless of what your distaste is for what Colin Kaepernick did, etc., there were no bylaws in their collective bargaining agreement or anywhere else for that matter that was mandating that Colin Kaepernick act accordingly. So he violated nothing. And I don't think you bring that up enough. The fact that while the NBA and MLB and other sports league had hard and fast rules that mandated certain levels of behavior, the NFL did not have those policies in place while being paid by the Department of Defense to promote patriotism. And so I think you have to hold the NFL accountable for dropping the ball and not being on their P's and Q's in this regard, because if they had been, then your point would be even more salient, Carlton. I'll give you the last word.
The 49ers could have said, you will in fact stand, and it's San Francisco.
But they did it.
How many people on the New England Patriots melt? How many?
That's true. But the point is, you still have the right to if you wanted to. And that's
you didn't have the right to if the owner tells you you can't. You don't.
Actually, yes, you do, because it's not a rule. It wasn't a rule. And that's the whole point.
The owner makes the rules for his team. It doesn't have to be collectively bargained. In other words, it didn't violate. There was no agreement in the collective bargaining.
I was told that the owners could have been sued had they done that.
Well, yes, and then the courts would have decided whether or not it was mandating a certain level of speech, which is what Kellerman says all along, but he says it without any court ruling. And if that was the case, well, then we would have to be where we are now, where they're saying, well, then you don't have to stand, but you got to stay in the locker room. But they should have not allowed it to get going.
I got you. I appreciate the call, Carlton. Thank you so much, buddy. Always appreciate you. Brian and Callie, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Brian. Brian.
Real quick, brother, I wanted to make
Brian, cut out your background noise. Put your mouth up to the phone so we can hear you and understand you, bro, because we don't right now. Go ahead.
Sorry about that, man. Hey, listen, I want to appreciate your candor and all these events, but you're 100% correct when it comes to the NFL owners should have nipped this thing in the bud a long time ago. My question is, how come a lot of these high impact players in the off season don't make their point known? Because they can in the off season on their own time, not on the football field. Make a point, take advantage of your status, make an impact in your community right where you're at. Everybody could do that. I don't understand why people don't see the problem when you dip into a billionaire's pocket.
Because the football field on a Sunday afternoon gives you the largest visible audience. Whereas if you don't have the football field, you're dependent on the camera's willingness to follow you in order for you to have an audience.
What's your thoughts on having justice for all of these things that are happening? Nobody's bringing a point up until they're on the football field.
Well, my biggest point is this. You weren't protesting against the NFL. If you were protesting against the NFL, then I would be totally against the NFL coming down on you this way. But the fact that the NFL feels an insatiable appetite and a need to address these issues the way that they're addressing it, even though I believe they're mishandling it, I can't knock their effort, considering the fact that they're trying to address something that they believe had nothing to do with them, because they were never being protested against. So why are they being drug into this issue? I understand that belief, and I get where they're coming from. But I appreciate the call, Brian. Thank you so much. Let's go to Lauren in New York. You're live with Stephen A. Lauren, good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Stephen A. I really enjoy listening to you.
Thank you.
But I just want to share my experience, because I'm a 55-year-old white woman who was visiting my 85-year-old mother in Miami Beach when I took her out with two of her best friends, whose husband happens to share my father's birthday those past couple years ago.
Okay.
After dinner, while my mother was discussing literally hearing aids with the husband,
Lauren, I need you to speak up a little bit so my audience can hear you. Please speak up.
I pulled my car up so that my mother, who doesn't see well in the dark, she was showing her 85-year-old friend her new hearing aids, okay? And a cop was behind me, so I pulled into a handicap spot so I didn't block the parking lot. I pulled the car over. It was idling, and I'm leaning against the front of the car. And the cop comes up to me and tells me I'm illegally parked in a handicapped parking lot. I said, you were right behind me. The car is idling. I'm leaning on the front of the car. I'm just picking up my 85-year-old mother.
Okay.
I thought he was kidding. He got in my face, and he wouldn't let it go, at which time I was getting angry, so I just walked away and said, you know what? If you're going to write a ticket, just write a ticket. Why are you getting in my face?
Okay.
Why are you harassing me?
Excuse me for rushing you a little bit, Lauren, and I appreciate your story. I truly do. But what is the point that you're trying to make?
The point I'm trying to make is he handcuffed me and sat me on the side of the road and put my mother in a police car for 30 minutes.
Mm.
So over claiming I was parked in a handicapped parking spot. When I said, listen, I'm not, you're going to give me a ticket anyway, just write a ticket. Why are you getting in my face? And he handcuffed me and sat me on the side of the road for 30 minutes.
So to just bring this full circle, is that your way of saying excessive police force or unnecessary police force if it is an issue that transcends race, that you don't have to be black just to go through this? It's a problem across the board. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say there are some police officers, not all, probably not even the majority, for whom the authority they're granted is a license for abuse of power.
Got it.
And
Lauren, thank you so much for the call, and I really, really appreciate that story, and I appreciate your perspective and point of view. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you so much. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. She makes a valid point. 55-year-old white woman going through this. Obviously, one would argue that that's probably an aberration compared to what black folks are going through, because black folks are going through it on a more frequent basis. But that's not for us to definitively say. We believe that. But some would say we don't necessarily know that definitively. So I appreciate her point, and I thank her for calling up to the show. Noted sociologist, civil rights activist, historian, and a friend, the great Harry Edwards, Dr. Harry Edwards. He'll be up next with yours truly, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio. I am in H-Town, site of tonight's Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals between the reigning defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets, who pulled off an incredible win in Game 4 back at the Oracle in Oakland, California. But Steve Kerr, the head coach for the Golden State Warriors, is making news for another reason. This whole issue of the NFL national anthem issue. The NFL implementing new policies to restrict players or to prohibit players from kneeling in public on a football field while the national anthem is being played, raised the eyebrows of Steve Kerr, the head coach for the reigning defending champion Golden State Warriors. Here's what he had to say on that matter.
I think it's just typical of the NFL. They're just playing to their fan base, and they're just basically trying to use the anthem as fake patriotism, nationalism, scaring people. It's idiotic, but that's how the NFL has handled their business. And I'm proud to be in a league that understands patriotism in America is about free speech, about peacefully protesting.
That was Steve Kerr, head coach for the reigning defending champion Golden State Warriors. We know he's right. There's no denying it. NFL looks bad. NFL is catering to a fan base out there that wants this issue to either go away or to be interpreted as an act against patriotism as opposed to what it's really, really about. But the reality is that there are millions of people out there that think like that, who patronize the NFL brand. And they're threatening to desert the NFL brand, and the NFL, caring primarily about its bottom line, is reacting to that. There's no way around it. We can slice it any way we want to. Is Dr. Harry Edwards there, John? Cat? He's not there. I'm actually glad about that. Doesn't bother me at all if Dr. Harry Edwards, we can't reach him right now because, to be honest with you, he's so phenomenal. He's so great. Professor Emeritus at UC Berkeley as well, noted historian and what have you. I don't want to give him 10 minutes. I actually want him for more minutes. That's me personally. So I'm glad that he's calling in late because I'm going to ask him to wait until tomorrow where I can give him more time because he deserves it. But for now, let's go back to the phones. Brent in Virginia, you're live with Stephen A. What's up? Brent, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead, buddy. Your words are yours.
I need you to help me understand how Mr. Goodell got on TV yesterday and claimed that there was a unanimous vote amongst the owners yesterday.
I think when you look at Chris Johnson, who is the younger brother of Woody Johnson, who spoke out against it and said he would pay the players fines if they got paid, that was the only dissenting voice that I saw. But Woody Johnson's the owner, not him. But just so you know.
I think the 49ers owner, if I'm not mistaken, said that he abstained from voting.
He did abstain. Yes, that is true. That is correct. He abstained.
As your show is as intelligent, I'm sure your listeners are as intelligent as you are. We need to dig really, really deep into how deceptive that very statement is when you stand in front of the nation and you make us think that 32 people voted and they did not.
Let me respond to that. Let me respond to that. You're right. That was very, very slick of the commissioner. But when he says it was a unanimous vote, if you abstained, then you didn't vote. And if you didn't vote, and he's counting those who did vote, and all those who did vote were in favor of it, technically he didn't lie. You see how slick that was, Brett?
Technically, he did lie. Just like you said earlier, right. We're talking about 32 billionaires now. So we're talking about 32 highly intelligent people. So they understood exactly what his point was, which is why immediately the gentleman who abstained came out and let everybody know, hey, do not lump me in with the rest of them folks in there.
But listen. I don't want you to belabor the point. I understand that you're right. But what I'm trying to say to you is that technically and theoretically, so is Goodell. Because the people who voted yes. If you abstained, you didn't vote. He didn't sit up there and say all 32 owners voted. He said the owners voted unanimously. It was a unanimous vote. He just left out the one that abstained and refused to vote. You see how slick that is? But it is true.
Again, and that's being business-like, but that's what has the NFL in this conundrum that they're in. Instead of being men and stand up and say what you mean and mean what you say, we have to play this game.
But let me tell you why I don't like your point, Brent. I think actually your point is too soft. I think a greater argument about your point to illuminate your point even more was the paid patriotism they engaged in. Why are you taking money to promote patriotism in this country? As a part of this country, shouldn't you be doing that for free? And if you're going to do that while taking money, right? How come you didn't have a hard and fast policy in place to begin with so you didn't have to concern yourself with this problem?
Very true, but you understand, Stephen, they won't even that's not even part of the discussion.
Okay.
You don't hear that being part of the discussion unless somebody from the exterior brings that up. So when he gets on national television and his point was, I got all 32 of these dudes that agree with me, that was not the truth. They did not all 32 agree with him. They didn't.
Okay, but you said that. Brent, you said that point about 5 times, bro. I'm telling you, let it go. There's businessmen lying or manipulating the facts for their own doing, which folks do all the time. We understand it was disingenuous. Make another point.
It's okay to do because we go through it all the time. Doesn't make it okay, Steve.
Yeah, but Brent, but stop whining. What can you do about that? You got the airwaves available to you. You called into the Stephen A. Smith Show from Virginia. Tell me what you can do about that in any business. Please, I want to know.
You can make him.
But we did, Brent.
No. You asked me for an answer. Listen to my answer, Stephen. What can we do? We can have Mr. Goodell tell us whether or not 32 owners voted and 32 owners voted.
No, we cannot. He did not do it. He had a chance to do it yesterday, and he didn't do it, which is why Ned York came out there. So you have learned that not 32 owners voted, but it was more like 31. One owner abstained, Brent. Period. So you caught Roger Goodell not being completely forthcoming. And
that's not the first time, and it's not going to be the last time.
That's
until
right.
Somebody stands up and holds them accountable for that.
Hold on. Who hasn't called them accountable? Who hasn't called them accountable? And by the way, he has 32 owners to answer to. How come they didn't hold him accountable? How come they didn't hold him?
They did. They're not letting us behind that door, Steve. We know for a fact that some things are going on behind the door.
Brent, I think that you are right now. Your point is valid, but I think you whistling into the wind, bro. And that's the problem with us. In the world of business, this man sat up there, technically speaking, he didn't lie. He said it was a unanimous vote. And NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said the vote was unanimous among owners, although San Francisco 49ers owner Jed York said he abstained. Sources told Wickersham that Oakland Raiders owner Mark Davis also abstained from the voting. So you have 2 owners who abstained. That means only 30 voted. But the 30 who voted in favor of the policy. So when Roger Goodell says it's unanimous, technically it's right. He didn't say all 32. He said the owners who voted unanimously. So why you going to call up on a radio show to lament that point? My God, you'll never have peace, bro. Because they do this all the time in every walk of business. I don't give a damn where it is. And you ain't getting around it. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. By the way, the NFL did not hold an official vote when it passed the new Anthem resolution taking effect this season. Sources told ESPN Seth Wickersham. Sources said that league executives polled owners and knew how they would vote, but didn't hold an official tally, which is atypical for a major resolution. So there wasn't even an official vote, an official tally. So Brent's point is valid. In Virginia, it's valid. But what are you going to do about that? The fact of the matter is, Roger Goodell didn't lie. He just didn't reveal all the nuances of the vote that actually took place. You trying to tell me that doesn't happen in corporate America? You going to call up on the air and whine and complain and whistle into the wind about that? You'll never have any peace. What he's complaining about happens to me once every hour of the day. You got to pick your battles and pick your fights. That ain't the one to pick. It'll kill you. It'll kill you. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. More of your calls to close out the show in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Delta strives to take the stress out of travel so you can focus on what comes next. And Delta Comfort Plus can help. With Sky Priority boarding, extra legroom, and a wide selection of unlimited complimentary snacks, you can arrive refreshed, ready to take on the world.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Let's get to the calls before we get on out of here. I am in H-Town, live for tonight's Game 5, Houston Rockets, Golden State Warriors. I cannot wait for this game. Y'all can't miss it. I'm not going to miss it. This is something special. Plus, you can make sure you can catch me pre-game, 6 o'clock, Sports Center, East Coast time, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, Central time, Sports Center. And then, of course, post-game on SportsCenter as well with Scott Van Pelt and the rest of the crew. I'll be on there as well. Starting next week, once the NBA Finals takes place, just to give you guys an alert, ESPN has asked yours truly, Stephen A. Smith, to host a special edition NBA Finals special SportsCenter edition with Stephen A. Smith only on game days. On game days from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be hosting SportsCenter live from the NBA Finals from 7 to 8 p.m. Just wanted y'all to know that. Just wanted y'all to know. Back to the phones we go. Let's go to Adam in Jersey. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Adam.
Good afternoon, Steve. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. I'm running out of time, buddy, so make it quick. Go ahead.
Good. Well, honestly, it's a lot of things, but I'm just trying to touch on the more important one. Like I told you before, I'm from New York here. I went to school in Wisconsin, Milwaukee specifically, which I just returned back yesterday. And sitting next to me, Chris Middleton, which is one of Milwaukee Bucks as well. That's not the case. The case is this city is the more racist place in the country. One of
Which
the
city?
most
Which city?
racist.
Which city? Which city?
Milwaukee.
Okay,
Milwaukee.
go ahead. I only asked you
Yes.
because you're calling from New Jersey. I was just trying to make sure you talk about Milwaukee. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it specific. I have seen this in the street. I have seen it in the neighborhood. I have seen it in my own classroom. And I could give you two personal examples if you allow me. Like last 2 weeks or so, when I was in Milwaukee, I went to a gas station just to purchase a gas, and the person just threw back the money in my face. And I told him, dude, you can't do that. That's very inappropriate and disrespectful for the customer.
You know what?
And
this conversation is not going anywhere, Adam, but I want to do justice to your argument. I want to give you more time. So save your second example for tomorrow when you call me back, because I got to get to another call, and I appreciate it, but I got to run. Michelle in Michigan, you're live with Stephen A. I only got a minute, Michelle. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, Stephen A. Great to talk to you. What I want to talk about is the NFL policy, but first of all, I don't think President Trump gives a crap about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. I think this all stems from Trump not getting a team, not one time, but 2 times.
That's what I said before. What's your second point?
Okay.
What's your second point? Because I only got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, and I don't understand these owners backing down. They refused him twice, and now these owners are kneeling to Trump. I don't get it.
Well, I get it. The reason I get it is because Trump has a constituency. He's the president of the United States, 62 million votes. A lot of others who agree with some of the things he said and some of the positions he's taken, even if they did not vote for him. And a lot of them are patrons of the National Football League. And as a result, the NFL, with a 10% drop in the ratings reportedly, along with some other things, their bottom line has been compromised. And that's all they care about. They want to make sure they don't affect the cash cow, and they're not going to allow the players to do that. I got to go, but I'll be back in 22 hours. I'm getting ready to watch the Warriors and the Rockets. I suggest you do so as well. Talk to you tomorrow. Peace and love.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.